I never thought 7 days could undo 3 years of loyalty. But that's exactly what happened. My name's James, and for 3 years, I was the guy who showed up early, stayed late, covered shifts when people called out, and never said no to a project. I worked at a mid-sized software company called Millstone Tech. I loved it there, or at least, I used to. It felt like home. The team was tight-knit, the environment was fast-paced but fair, and I genuinely felt valued, until they brought in a new boss. Our old supervisor, Mr. Dempsey, had retired at the end of the year. We all threw him a goodbye lunch, gave him a plaque, took pictures. He was one of the good ones. When Mr. Halvorsen replaced him, things immediately shifted. The man was cold. Calculated. The kind of guy who smiled without ever really meaning it. He barely introduced himself. No welcome meeting, no getting to know you chat, just a list of new protocols in an email and a long stare whenever you passed him in the hallway. Still, I figured I'd do what I always did, work hard and earn his respect. A few weeks later, it hit me. At first, I thought it was just fatigue. You know, too many late nights and too much takeout. But then the chills started. The headache. The sore throat that felt like swallowing glass. Fever hit me like a truck. I couldn't even sit up straight without the room spinning. I went to urgent care and they told me to stay home, flu, maybe even a virus. Whatever it was, I was out cold. I did everything right. I emailed HR with the doctor's note. I even CC'd Halvorsen, just to be transparent. I explained I was too sick to come in but would keep them posted and check in as I recovered. I figured, worst case scenario, they'd dock my sick days. I had plenty saved up. By the 4th day, I was still in bed, sweating through my sheets. I barely had the strength to look at my phone, let alone answer calls. But I checked my inbox every day, nothing from my boss. Nothing from HR. Just silence. On day 7, I was finally starting to feel human again. I made myself some soup, sat at my desk in my apartment, and was about to log into the company portal when I saw it. The subject line read, "Termination of employment, effective immediately." I stared at it, thinking maybe it was a phishing email. Maybe a mistake. I opened it and read every word, over and over. Dear James, due to extended unavailability and failure to meet attendance expectations, we regret to inform you that your position has been terminated effective immediately. I couldn't believe it. No phone call. No meeting. No warning. Just a sterile, pre-written message like I was a problem they had finally fixed. I called HR immediately. No answer. Left a voicemail. Nothing. I emailed back, asking for clarification. Asking why no one reached out. Asking how I could be fired for being sick. No reply. The shock hit first. Then the anger. 3 years. 3 years of weekends lost to deadlines, of skipping birthdays and anniversaries, of always saying yes to extra work. And they fired me like I was some random intern who ghosted on day 1. I told myself maybe there was some misunderstanding. Maybe the new boss didn't know how I worked. Maybe HR didn't see my email. But deep down, I knew. This wasn't an accident. It was personal. I sat in that chair for what felt like hours, staring at my computer screen, trying to wrap my head around what had just happened. It didn't make sense. It didn't feel real. 1 week. That's all it took. 1 week of being human. 1 week of getting sick. 1 week of not being able to function like a machine. And I was gone. I didn't cry. Not right away. I just sat there. Numb. Like someone had wiped my identity clean. I had poured so much of myself into that job, that company, those people. And in a single click, they'd erased me. And the worst part? I still didn't know why. The first week after getting fired felt like falling down a dark hole with no bottom. Every morning, I'd wake up expecting to check in, open my work inbox, sit in on the daily stand-up call, and every morning, I'd have to remind myself, you don't work there anymore. Just like that. 3 years wiped clean. I stopped checking my email. I stopped opening the blinds. I didn't even tell my mom for a few days because I couldn't get the words out without feeling like a failure. I didn't know how to explain it, how someone could give everything to a job, then get tossed out over a week of illness. It made no sense. I started to wonder if I'd done something wrong. Maybe I had missed a detail in the employee handbook. Maybe I hadn't been clear enough in my email to HR. Maybe this was on me. But that was the shame talking. One night, I went out for a walk just to get some air. I hadn't seen anyone in days. I ended up near a little diner a few blocks from my apartment. I walked in for coffee and ran into Caleb, one of my old coworkers. We used to sit a few desks apart. He blinked when he saw me. "James? Man, what happened? You just disappeared." I gave him the short version. Sick. Fired. No warning. He shook his head and leaned in. "You're not the only one, man. You didn't hear?" I frowned. "Hear what?" "Halvorson's been letting people go quietly. Folks who've been here a while. Especially the ones Dempsey hired. He's replacing them with his own people. Outsiders. I heard he calls it trimming the fat. Real snake stuff." It clicked. All of it. The cold welcome. The lack of response. The way no one said a word. I wasn't fired because I was sick, I was targeted. Marked. Removed because I wasn't part of his system. I was a number in a spreadsheet, a name on a list of people he didn't want around. That night, when I got back home, something shifted in me. The fog didn't lift completely, but I could feel the fire starting again. I didn't want revenge. I didn't want to beg for my job back. I wanted to matter. I wanted to build something that no one could take from me. The next morning, I made a list. A list of every client I had ever worked with. Every person I helped troubleshoot software for. Every person who had ever emailed me to say thank you for fixing something that others gave up on. I still had their names. Their numbers. Some of them were managers. Some were small business owners. Then I picked up the phone. I made 10 calls that day. Introduced myself. Told them I was no longer with Millstone, but I was still offering tech support, independently. Some asked what happened. I gave them a clean version. No bitterness. Just facts. Fired after 3 years. No warning. Going solo. 3 people agreed to let me help them on the side. Small jobs. A printer issue. A server crash. A data migration nightmare. Nothing major, but it gave me something I hadn't felt in weeks: hope. I set up a website that night. Just a simple landing page. Tech by James, support you can count on. It wasn't flashy, but it was me. My own name. My own time. No bosses. No politics. Every night after that, I worked. Built guides. Took calls. Watched tutorials to expand my skill set. And during the day, I'd walk, fresh air, clear mind, and I started to feel like I had something again. 2 weeks in, I got an email from an old client named Linda. She used to run a dental clinic. Said her system crashed and no one from Millstone would help because she wasn't on a premium plan. I fixed it in under an hour. She sent me a $300 tip and a message: "You always deliver. Let me know if you ever start a company." I sat there staring at that message for a long time. I wasn't just surviving. I was building something real. 6 months after I got fired, I was busier than I had ever been in my life. What started as side gigs and phone calls turned into real projects. Real clients. Real momentum. I didn't even notice it happening at first. I was just doing what I knew how to do, solving problems, fixing things, helping people, but now, I was doing it on my terms. My little website turned into a full-service business. I registered the name officially, Tech by James, LLC. I hired a graphic designer to help with branding. I even brought on a part-time assistant to manage client calls and invoices. Before long, I had more work than I could handle on my own. And you know what the craziest part was? Most of my clients came from Millstone connections. Not the company itself, but the people I used to help while I worked there. Some of them didn't even know I'd been fired. They thought I left to start my own thing. When they found out the truth, they were shocked. Angry, even. A few told me they weren't renewing contracts with Millstone because they preferred working with me directly. There was something so poetic about that. The same people they thought wouldn't matter outside the system were the ones keeping clients happy. And now, they were coming to me. By the 9th month, I had enough income to rent a small office downtown. It wasn't much, just a second-floor space with creaky floors and sunlight that hit the desk around noon, but when I stepped inside for the first time with the keys in my hand, I felt something I hadn't felt in a long time: freedom. No clocking in. No fake smiles from cold bosses. No fear of being replaced. This space was mine. My energy. My vision. My rules. One morning, I was invited to a local tech conference as a speaker. Me. A guy who used to sit in a cubicle with 2 monitors and a coffee mug with a chip in the handle. They asked me to talk about how small businesses could manage IT services on a budget. I said yes. I spent a week preparing slides and notes. I practiced in front of the mirror. I was nervous, but in the best way. The day of the conference came, and I walked into that hotel ballroom wearing a navy blazer I bought with my first big paycheck. I stood at the podium, looked out at the crowd, and recognized a few faces. But one face stopped me cold. Halvorsen. He was sitting near the back, alone. He didn't look like the boss I remembered. His posture was slouched, his face drawn. I found out later from another attendee that Millstone had downsized again, mass layoffs after client contracts dried up. Apparently, there had been complaints. HR issues. Leadership instability. He was no longer with the company. I don't know why he came. Maybe curiosity. Maybe coincidence. Maybe he wanted to see what the guy he fired was doing now. I didn't call him out. Didn't even mention the past. I just delivered my talk. Clear, confident, passionate. I told them about the importance of trust, about building relationships, about remembering that behind every tech problem was a person who needed support, not just a solution. People clapped when I finished. A few came up to ask questions. One woman handed me her card and said, "We've been looking for someone like you." And Halvorsen? He stood in the back, silent. When our eyes met, he gave a small nod. Just that. No words. No apology. But I didn't need one. That nod told me everything I needed to know. I walked out of that ballroom with my head high, heart full, and a line of people waiting to work with me. I didn't just rebuild, I elevated. I turned pain into purpose. Setback into setup. And if you're watching this, maybe you're going through something similar. Maybe someone tried to write you off. Fire you. Bury you. Let me tell you something. They didn't know you were a seed. Thanks for listening to my story. If it encouraged you even a little bit, hit that subscribe button and share this video with someone who needs to hear it. Your comeback might be closer than you think.